Hey everybody, I'm making this video message to ask you a question. The question I want to ask you is, how long are you willing to wait on God? I decided to come to you guys with this message because waiting on God is not always going to be what you think it should be, and waiting on God is not always going to look how you feel it should look. In life and in your human experience, you are going to go through so many different things, levels, seasons, setbacks, disappointments, wrong turns, all types of things you are going to experience in this life. And once you make a decision to get under the umbrella of God and worship Him and follow Him and communicate with Him and develop a relationship with Him, you are going to find yourself in a time and place and season where you are waiting on Him for something. There are going to be moments where you may pray and ask God or expect God to move on your behalf in a particular situation or for a particular thing. And God will move quickly for you in that particular situation. He will move quickly. There are prayers that I prayed and I saw God move sometimes in less than 24 hours or exactly 24 hours later. And I was very, very shocked, but it showed me God's heart, a part of His heart and His character. And so I am asking you guys, how long are you willing to wait? Because I know there are some of you out here, you are indeed waiting on God to do something for you. What are you waiting for God to do for you? What have you prayed and asked God to do for you? What do you need God to do for you or a family member or your friends or your spouse or your children? What is the particular thing that you need God to do? What do you expect God to do for you in this particular time and season that we are in? And after you answer the questions that I just asked you, as far as what are you waiting or expecting, or what do you need God to do, then now you have to answer, how long am I willing to wait? Why do you wait for a particular thing? You wait for a particular thing so you can get a particular result and outcome. And if something is rushed or given to you or done quickly, sometimes, I said this to you all before, sometimes your level of maturity or even the lack of your preparation for the particular thing that you are waiting on will be destroyed. And so God holds you in a particular place for a certain amount of time until it's the perfect timing for Him to make His move. But are you willing to wait for God for a very long season until He does exactly what you have been asking him to do, praying for him to do, expecting him to do, and waiting for him to do? Are you willing to wait? What does waiting for God look like? This is something that needs to be talked about because you don't always hear a lot of people, especially a lot of men and women of God, talking about how it looks when you are waiting on God. There were scenarios and situations and circumstances where there were people who were waiting on God. And over the course of them waiting and being patient, people around them were dying. People around them, or even themselves, they got sick. Certain things were taken away from them. People developed perceptions of them. Certain people, even some of you, may have been misjudged or even perceived to be a particular way. But outside people have no idea what you are waiting on God to do for you. One thing that I learned a long time ago is that you seriously cannot look at the outward appearance of someone, and I don't care how ugly another human being's situation may look to you, or what you think you see, or what you think you know, or who has come and tickled your ears with information concerning a particular person. You really don't know what that person has been praying and crying and waiting for God to do, not only within them or their life or the loved ones around them. And this is why in my spiritual maturity, I have learned to keep my mouth off particular situations that I don't have all the information on. Because people, when I tell you behind closed doors, you can see an individual that you personally feel is an absolute failure or mess. But behind closed doors, that person stays in the presence of God, crying out to God and begging God to touch them so they can be transformed and come out of a particular way of thinking or a particular situation that has been toxic for them. Or you can see someone that has been sick for so long or taking losses and hits for so long, and you will perceive them to be a certain way. Or you will sometimes see a person that has taken so many hits and gone through so many trials, you don't even really wholeheartedly believe that they worship and follow and talk to God. You ever been at that place? Have you ever been at that place where you judged another human being and you saw life beating them down in different areas, and you will begin to believe this person is not with God? This person cannot possibly believe in God and be talking and praying to God, because I'm seeing them just go through a bunch of stuff. I don't think that they have a certain relationship with God. And I just think this happens with all of us. I think that this is naturally just human nature, or sometimes we make an assumption when we see the next man or woman going through something, that it's something bad that they've done, or it's a punishment, or something has gone on in their life and they are reaping something back that they put out. But I am here to tell you guys, when you are seriously waiting on God for a particular thing, it is not going to look like you think or like what you expect it to look. It's not always going to be a pretty picture. It's not always going to be something you understand. It's not always going to be something you have all the information about. It's not always going to be something that that particular person is coming talking to you about. And this is why the older that I get and the more that I go to God, I have learned in many situations that I see that it's not always for me to even give a response. It's not always for me to even try to understand it because I don't know what that particular person or people are waiting for. But what I can tell you guys is when you have sat back and you have waited for God and you have been praying and expecting God and you believe God to do a particular thing for you, baby, when he touches and puts his hands in that particular thing, every single thing that you went through and you had to experience, you no longer are even mad about it. You are no longer crying about it. You are just so appreciative of the fact that God came down and touched what you have been bringing before him. You are so glad that God has turned around a particular situation in your favor. That's why I'm making a video message, because there are some of you, you are waiting for something and you've been waiting for a very long time and your patience is running thin. You're getting tired of waiting. You're getting tired of crying. You're getting tired of waking up in the middle of the night wondering, God, where are you? I don't hear you. I don't see you. I've been coming to you about this situation or this issue or this particular person for 5 years. It's been 10 years. It's been 20 years, God. It's been 25 years. It's been 30 years. It's been 40 years, God. Where are you? Where are you? Why have you not come and answered the prayer that I've been praying? And just so you all know, God sometimes is not always going to answer every single prayer. But understand that if God chooses to not answer a particular prayer, it doesn't necessarily mean that he didn't move on your behalf. It doesn't mean that. It could just mean that God didn't answer a particular prayer because he has another plan. And you all know, if you're under God, that in the end, it doesn't matter what we plan out or what we think we deserve to get or what we wrote down or put on our little board and said, this is what I'm going to accomplish, this is what I'm going to do. The bottom line is, if it is not in the will of God, my brothers and sisters, it will not come to pass. It will not happen. Sometimes the very tears that you cry and sometimes the things that have disappointed you and they remain the same, the blessing is still in the midst of that, because from you waiting and from that particular thing not being turned around, it taught you humility. It taught you patience. It taught you how to properly love. Catch it in the spirit. Those of you who are not catching what I'm saying, use your discernment and catch it in the spirit. That's my video message. How long are you willing to wait for God? And while you waiting for God, please understand and receive the fact that your waiting is not always going to look like other people think it should look. It's not always going to look like what you personally feel it should look like. Sometimes it has been a complete mess that has been made in the lives of a particular person. And the whole time you sitting back and misjudging them, or you have a perception of them. when they got behind the scenes and was talking to God. You don't even know what they were praying and asking God to do. You don't know what God told them to walk through. Waiting builds endurance. Waiting teaches humility. Waiting calms you down. It's nothing deeper that I can tell you. That's what I'm telling you. That's the answer. It's nothing more than that. Time changes you. Waiting changes you. You learn to be patient, and when, or if it's under the will of God and you get a particular thing, you never ever forget what you had to go through to get to that particular point or get that particular transformation, turnaround, and blessing. Well, guys, I know it's a sad time for you, but it's time for me to go. Don't be upset. The Lord willing, I will be back with another video message. If any one of you have been offended by anything I spoke about today, it's okay, because I know you will forgive me in the morning.